thieves, so to speak. And I remember that night, I was just devastated. I went back to my dorm room. I laid down on my bed. I looked up at the ceiling and I literally cried out to God. And I said, oh God, how can there be such dastardly people on the face of the earth as the people I've been with today? That by design and intention rule the lives of human beings. They know what they're doing. They intentionally control nations and currencies and people and the world. And they do it in advance. And they do it by design. And they do it by intent. And I'll never forget that day. Well, I met the elite. They're positive. I don't know how to express this enough, because since you've never met them and you've never lived with them, the only thing I can do is just tell you what I lived and saw. I need to say emphatically again to every person in the listening audience of this DVD, there positively is a group of people on the face of the earth who control the world. They tell the president what to do. They dictate to Congress what bills to pass. They control everything in our life. They control the amount of paycheck, the money that you make. They control everything that we do. They have the control of the world today, and there positively is such a group of people living on the face of the earth today, and they control the world. I don't know how to say it any other way. Let me give you an example. 1984. I was sitting in my home. This was after the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. I was sitting in my home in Kasilof, Alaska, and the phone rang. And the man on the other end of the line, I had not seen him since the pipeline, and he said, Chaplain, you know, the elite are human.
Yes.
They love to brag, and some days they feel better than they do others. And he'd call me up, and he said, Chaplain, do you want people to think you're a prophet? That's quite a statement. And I said, well, what do you mean? Now, at that time, oil was $32 a barrel. He said, do you have any speaking engagements in the next few weeks? I said, yes. Just so happens I start next week in Seattle, Washington, wind up in Southern California about 3 months later, speaking almost every night. He said, every place you go, tell them that oil is going from $32 a barrel to $9 a barrel. I said, no. No way. I said, it can't happen. I said, that would devastate the world. He said, but it's going to. He said, come on, Chaplain. He said, you sat in our board meetings. You know who controls the price of a barrel of oil. He said, now come on, get off of it. Go tell them. I did. My audiences, I literally had some audiences that broke out laughing at me. They knew it couldn't happen. And when it did, my phone rang off the hook. They said, you're a prophet. And I said, no, I'm not. I told you first I wasn't. That I was just voicing what he said. But it was the same time that gold went from $800. You remember it had spiked up to about $800 an ounce, and it went back down to $250 an ounce. And all this was timed perfectly by the elite, because they had told the Arabs, buy gold, buy gold, buy gold, when it went up to $32 a barrel. And they bought train carloads of gold back in those days at $700 and $800 an ounce, because that's what they'd been told by the elite to do. And then when the price of oil went from $32 a barrel to, they didn't quite make it to 9, they went to 10. And when it got to $10 a barrel, the Arabs had to sell, in order to maintain their economies, they had to sell their gold back to the same people they'd bought it from at $700, $800 an ounce. They had to sell it back at $250 an ounce in order to keep the people under the sheikhs and the sheiks from rebelling against them and overthrowing them. And every bit of it was planned, and I was told about it 3 months in advance. And it was all planned exactly for that purpose.
Wow.
They knew exactly what they were doing. Now, the same thing is happening today, except for the past 35 years. Every time I have heard one of these elites say something, I have voiced it, and I do have contact with a number of them even yet, and I would merely tell what they know. Now, I know people. I understand the mindset of the elite, and I express it in one sentence. The name of the game is control. Some of these people that I rub shoulders with, if they wrote a check for $1 million every day, they would never spend all of their wealth in their lifetime.
Wow.
It's not all about money. Even though it is partially about that, it really is about control, manipulation of people, having control over nations. As a result, I have written 3 books about the ruling elite. My first book was The Energy Non-Crisis. It became famous overnight and became a bestseller. My second book was To Seduce a Nation. And then my third book, which is out of print, Syndrome of Control. And all of these I wrote attempting to explain the mindset of the elite so that people could comprehend how these people think, because they don't think in the same terms that you and I think in. They think only in terms of manipulation and control and power. Many years ago, there was a man by the name of Quigley. Quigley wrote a famous book, I'm sure you've heard of it, entitled Tragedy and Hope. And after he wrote the book, someone said, Mr. Quigley, now by the way, Mr. Quigley was one of the elite of his time. And they said, Mr. Quigley, you wrote a book telling everything about the elite, how they think, what they do, how they manipulate, and you've even told what they're going to do. Aren't you afraid? Didn't it bother you? Aren't you concerned? Mr. Quigley said, no, not at all. They said, why not? He said, nobody's going to believe me. Well, I know. They're sitting there in front of the television set right now watching this DVD, and they're saying, this guy, there's no way in the world I can believe all this. Well, just stay around a while. You'll just like Quigley, he knew exactly what he was writing, and he wrote it.
Why do they want the control? You see, most people think that the ruling elite, all they want to do is make money. Well, money is only a tool. The objective is really control. Why do they want so much control?
Well, money, first of all, is nothing. It's a piece of paper. It's a Federal Reserve note. It has no value to them at all. The only thing they want is power. Same thing Hitler wanted, same thing Mussolini wanted, same thing Stalin wanted. They want control of human beings and control of nations. It's the inner being of somebody to want to control somebody else when they don't know what the Bible has to say about how a person should live. It's a human trait to want to control other human beings.
Well, let me give you my take on that. I think that the reason they want the control is to bring everyone on the globe down to one central question. Either you take the mark or you lose your head. Ultimately, that's where it's going.
I agree. That's the ultimate goal. You're exactly right. You and I have studied the Scriptures, therefore we know that. So let me tell you just a little bit about the man who told me these things so that you will understand DVD number 1, Tragedy. Remember the book?
Right.
DVD number 2 is Hope. DVD number 3, and I'm warning you in advance, you may not want to watch it. It's entitled Reality. It will startle you. You may have trouble sleeping at night. It positively is psychologically disturbing. But I'm going to give it. I've never given these things before. And many of these things I will not say on a radio talk show because I wouldn't dare tell what they had to say about our present president. I'll say it in this DVD as we go along. This man is over 85 years of age. Now, when you get to be 85 years of age, you start over 85 years of age, should I say. You begin to think about eternity. You know that around the corner somewhere that every person you've ever known wound up in the same place underneath, 6 feet under. And people begin to think. And regardless of what their status in life is, sometimes they would like to confess. Now, I'm not saying that's what this man did. But it's my guess that if I could say why he told me the things that you're going to be hearing on these DVDs, there's only one reason he told me. He wanted to get it off his chest. Now, it was quite amazing. 2 years ago,